Hello everyone, this is Glenda Winkleman and welcome back to Creative Grandma. This design for this episode is called the Blue Ice Big Stitch Afghan, and this is pattern number 526, and I'll be right back to show you everything you need to make this wonderful big stitch Afghan. Now for this Afghan, Premier Yarns has sponsored this Afghan by sending me this yarn. And let me just show you this yarn. I'm just going to pull it apart. It's super thick. It's like a netting. It's thick. It's soft. It's wonderful. It doesn't go very far though, but it makes a wonderful Afghan. Now for this Afghan itself, you're going to need 9 skeins of this calm blue. Now this yarn is available on premieryarns.com website, and that's right here. So if you go to their website, you can actually order this and it can come right to your door. So you need 9 skeins of the calm blue. You're going to need 13 skeins of milk, which is this milky white. And you're going to need 3 skeins of this mist gray. I'm not sure if you can see the colors. Let me throw these out. Here's the milk, and then it softly goes into the mist gray and then comes into the blue. Now this is the center with the blue, white, and blue. But just a beautiful repeat of colors, and then you reverse the colors when you get to the halfway point down the other side. So this is going to be a simple, easy, 1-row repeat. We're going to do the first row in basic Tunisian simple stitch, and then all the other rows are just going to be the simple knit stitch. So the only thing you have to do is change colors with your row. So I'll be right back and I'll show you how to make this wonderful Afghan. I also forgot to mention that you will need a size U 25mm hook to do your border. Now this is the shorter, just the big crochet hook. So now for the monster hook, this hook here is available on my website, but we are only taking this as a pre-order. So this monster hook here, if you get on the website, you can place your order, and we're asking for about a 2-week turnaround time because these are custom made and they will be made upon order. So when I get your order, then I send them to the woodworker, he will make them, and then they will ship out as soon as he gets it done. So about a 2-week time frame for the monster hook. So thank you everybody, and let's get on with making this blanket. So we need 27 chain. You're going to hold on to this, yarn over the hook, and pull it through that first loop that you tied around your hook. That's your first chain. This does not count as a chain. Put your finger on your loop because this will move. Yarn over the hook, pull it through that loop. That's 2 chains. Put your finger on your loop so it doesn't go anywhere. Yarn over the hook, pull it through that loop. You need a total of 27. So go ahead and finish making your 27 chain, and I'll be back after I get mine made. I have my 27 chains made, but when we work our first row, instead of going in underneath in the chain, we're going to work on the back side. I'm going to flip this. This is the wrong side of my chain, and you'll see these little center links. This is what we're going to be working in, right in these center chain rings. So if you hold this out and look, this is what we're going to work in. This one, this one, this one, down the chain. So this is our first chain. We're going to skip that and we're going to come over into the second chain. We're going to flip this over, and you're going to look for your first center stitch going horizontal. Just put your fingers through there, make it a little bigger, and stick your hook in there. Yarn over the hook, and you're going to pull it through that back hump. It's a little harder to see with the bigger. It's easier to see, but it's harder to see. I'm not sure. I don't know how to explain it, but now this is your neck stitch, but you're going to turn it over and you're going to look for that link going horizontal crosswise. Just take your finger, stick your finger in there, open that up, stick your hook in there on the back side of your chain, yarn over the hook, and pull it through that back hump. You're keeping all your loops on your hook, and what it's doing is it's forming these nice stitches down here, so when we work our border you can see which stitch is which. So again, this is our next stitch. You're going to flip it over, and right between the stitches you'll see the hump. This is the hump. This is the back horizontal crosswise link. Stick your finger in that, stick your hook in there, yarn over the hook, and pull it through that back hump on your chain. This is your next chain, and this is your next chain. So you're going to flip your chain over to the back. You're going to find that center link, stick your finger underneath that link, make it looser, insert your hook into that link, yarn over the hook, and pull it through that link. And again, we're keeping all of our loops on the hook, and you can see on the bottom how it's creating that nice row of stitches for us to do our border. Let me show you one or two more times. So this is your next stitch, but you want to go right in between the two stitches. You're going to turn that work over, and you're going to look for the center link right between those two stitches, which they call the hump stitch. You're just going to pick that up, stick your finger through it so you can know where to put your hook, insert your hook in that stitch, yarn over the hook, and pull it through the loop. These are your next two stitches. So you flip this over, and you're going to look for that hump stitch right between the stitches. Right in the center you'll see that crosswise stitch, that link. You're going to stick your finger in there, take your hook, put it through that loop, yarn over the hook, and pull it through. That's all there is to row one. Go ahead and continue working across your chain. I will meet you at the end of your chain. I'm over to my last chain, and I thought I'd just show where the last hump is. So here's your last chain. When you flip it over, you can see it right here in the middle. You're just going to take that, put your finger through there, stick your hook over that loop, yarn over the hook, and pull it through. When you're done, you should have a total of 27 loops. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, and 27 loops. So my 27 loops are on the hook, and I'll be right back to show you how to take your loops off the hook. So we're getting ready to take our loops off. So to start taking the loops off, we're going to yarn over the hook and pull through one loop only. And that is to start taking our loops off. Now to finish taking the loops off, we're going to yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops. And we're just going to repeat this. Yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops until we get down to the last 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 loops only. Yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 loops. Yarn over the hook, pull it 2 loops. So continue working in that manner, and stop when you get down to the last 2 loops on your hook, and we're going to change colors. So I'm over to my last 2 loops, and this is what row 1 should look like. You can see your vertical stitches, and this row is just basic Tunisian simple stitch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our new color. So I'm just going to turn my hook. I have my milk colored yarn, and I'm just going to wrap it around my yarn I already have, and I'm just going to tie a knot twice. I'm going to pull down on that, right down snug against that stitch, and then I'm going to pull it back just ever so slightly because we want that a little bit loose so when you come back to do your stitch it won't be real tight. So what you're going to do to finish is you're going to yarn over the hook and pull it through the last 2 loops on the hook, and what happens is it finishes your row in the blue and it starts row 2 with the new color in the milk color. So your first loop counts as your first stitch of row 2. So now for row 2 is called the Tunisian knit stitch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set my hook down, and I'm just going to show you when you pick up your work, you have the vertical stitches. So when we work the knit stitch, I'm going to come down a little bit here so I can pick it up easier. You're going to insert your hook underneath the vertical stitch, and then you have this yarn coming across. So if you look at the stitch, it's like a horseshoe. It goes up, around, and down, and then you have this yarn coming through. So what you're going to do is the hook, I'm using my finger, the hook goes underneath this vertical stitch, and then you're going to take it underneath these stitches here and right through to the back. And then you'll yarn over, and then you're going to pull that stitch back through to the top of your work. So underneath the vertical stitch, you're going to go under this, but you have to make sure that you do not get caught in the next stitch, because the next stitch is here. If you would come through here at an angle and go through there, then you're going to mess up your stitches. You got to make sure you use your fingers and maneuver this around to make sure that you are going before that stitch. I don't know if you can see it. This is your second stitch here, going up around. You've got to make sure your hook goes in front of it. Okay, so let's get started with row 2. I hope that explained it. We're going to insert our hook underneath the next vertical stitch, and then you're going to go underneath. Just make sure that second stitch is out of the way. If you have to stick your finger in there and push it back, that's fine, but you're going underneath this top yarn that's going horizontal, and you're going in front of the next stitch into that opening front to back. Yarn over the hook, and you're going to pull it back through your stitch, which kind of like splits the stitch. It opens it up, and that's what creates your knit stitch. So insert your hook underneath the next vertical stitch, and then from front to back in front of the next stitch. Yarn over the hook, and then pull it back through your stitch. And again, you can see your knit stitches forming. There's one, and there's the other. So let's do it a couple more times. And row 2 is your repeat row. You will be working this row throughout the design, and you'll just be changing colors like we did between rows 1 and 2. So insert your hook under that next vertical stitch. Make sure you're in front of the next stitch, and you just work from front to back. Yarn over the hook, and then pull it back through that stitch. Find your next vertical stitch. Insert your hook underneath that stitch, and then from front to back in the opening between the stitches. Yarn over the hook and pull it back through. Find your next stitch. Insert your hook underneath that next vertical stitch, and then from front to back through your work. yarn over the hook, and pull it through that stitch. Find your next vertical stitch, insert your hook under that stitch, and then from front to back through your work, yarn over the hook and pull it through that stitch. So continue in that manner until you get to the last stitch. I will meet you there and show you how to do the last stitch across. So I'm over at the end of row 2 and we're at our last vertical stitch. So what you need to do is we need to go under both of these strands of yarn at the end of the row. So insert your hook right underneath those last 2 strands of the end, yarn over the hook, and pull it through both of those strands of yarn. And as you can see, this creates a nice stitch on the end. And you have to do this because if you only go into the top stitch, what will happen is this side will start getting larger because the knit stitch is a smaller stitch. So we need to go in both stitches to keep that height even throughout the work. So we're going to take our loops off in the same manner that we did in the last row, and we'll take them off in this manner for each row. Now row 2 is our repeat row, and this is the row that you will work throughout the design, and you will only change colors with this design. You won't change the stitch. So once you do row 2, that is your stitch pattern for the whole Afghan, for the main center of the Afghan. So we're going to start taking our loops off, yarn over the hook, and pull through 1 loop only. Yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops. Yarn over the hook and pull through 2 loops. So go ahead and continue taking your loops off until you have 1 loop remaining on your hook, and I will meet you there. So I'm at the end of row 2, and you can see that this, I have 1 loop remaining, and this counts as the first stitch and first loop of row 3. So to do row 3, you're going to do it the same way you did row 2. You're going to insert your hook under that next vertical stitch. You're going to insert from front to back between the stitch you're working on and the next stitch, making sure you don't get it caught in that stitch. Spread that yarn if you have to with your fingers and insert front to back. Yarn over the hook and pull it through the stitch. And you can see how your knit stitches are being formed. Insert your hook into that next vertical stitch. Insert your hook from front to back through your work. Yarn over the hook and pull it back through that stitch. So you're just going to continue in that manner, same as row 2. Now I'm going to show you a paper with the colors. So when you go to change colors, if say for instance this is row 3, so at the end of row 3 you're going to change to gray, to the mist color. So you would stop at your last 2 loops, and if you're not sure how you do it, clip back on the video to where we started row 2, where you were at the end of row 2 and we changed colors. So when you get ready to change colors, you stop at the last 2 loops, you tie your new color on and pull it through 2 loops. So again, if you need help, just click back on the video. All you're doing is repeating the knit stitch throughout. So let me show you this color code here. So right now you are working row 3. You're up here. So when you get done with row 3, you work over to your last 2 loops, you attach your mist, that's the gray color. And then when you're done with your 1 row of mist, you stay and change your colors at the last 2 loops, and so on. So I'm just going to leave this here for you to kind of see the color combination. You can just click on pause. You can write this down if you want to, but you're going to work a total of 37 rows. Now you don't have to follow my color combination. If you wanted to make this all in one color or two colors, the yarn amounts that I give you in the beginning of the video, you can just add them all together and buy one color, split it in two, buy two colors, whatever you want to do. Make it whatever color you want to. PremierYarns.com has other colors. They're gorgeous. I'm sure they have some new colors that just come out, so I'm sure that you will definitely find some colors that you like. I picked these. It was the middle of winter. It just reminded me of like ice, and I thought that would just be a good color combination. So, okay, go ahead and work to the end of row 37. When I get to the end of row 37, I'll come back with my Afghan and I will show you how to do that last finishing row. I'm over at the end of row 37, and you can see this is what your work should look like. Now, this is heavy and it's hanging. This is the end of my table, so I'm going to have a little bit of trouble trying to show you how to do this last row, because I know it's gonna want to fall right off the table because of the weight. So to work the last row, we're going to work in the same manner as like a knit stitch, but instead of keeping the loop on the hook, we're going to pull it through all the loops on the hook, and we're going to create a nice edging across the top. So what we're going to do, we're going to skip this first stitch here, and we're going to insert our hook into that next vertical stitch. Just like you're working the row, we're going to insert it under that vertical stitch, and then from front to back. You're going to yarn over the hook, pull it through that stitch, and then pull it through the loop on your hook. You're going to insert your hook under the next vertical stitch, just like you're working the knit stitch, and then from front to back, yarn over the hook, pull it back through that stitch and through the loop on your hook. And you can see it's forming the stitches on top. I'll show you better when I do a couple more stitches. Insert into the next stitch underneath that vertical bar and from front to back. Yarn over the hook, pull it through that stitch, and pull it through that loop on your hook. So you can see the stitches. Insert your hook under that next vertical stitch, and then from front to back, yarn over the hook, pull it through that stitch, and pull it through the loop on the hook. Let me show you one more time. Insert your hook into that next vertical stitch, and then from front to back, yarn over the hook, pull it back through that stitch, and back through that loop on that hook. And you can see how nicely it makes those stitches. And when you look on the side, you can see your stitches. When you look on the top, you'll be able to see your stitches on the other side and on the bottom as well. They'll all look the same. So go ahead and work this across to your last stitch, and I'll meet you there. I'm over to the end of our finishing row. I worked in my last stitch, and you can see on this edge how it forms the stitches down the length. You can see where your stitches are. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fasten off my work, leaving a little bit of a length so we can weave that in. So now I'm going to grab my smaller hook, and I'll be back and we'll start our border. So to start our border, I'm using the size U 25 millimeter crochet hook. So it's not quite as large as the one we did for this, but it's the largest one I had, so it should work fine. We're going to insert our hook into this first stitch. So if you look at your work, you'll have this one here, the blue stitch here, and then you'll have this one up here. So do not go in this. This is your side stitch. We want to go into this stitch here. I'm going to pull my new color through, and I'm going to chain one. Let me see if I can get closer up. I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to work a single crochet into this same stitch. So if you never did a single crochet before, insert your hook into that stitch, and I'm just going to work right over my end as I go across to help weave that in. Yarn over the hook, pull it through the stitch. You have 2 loops on your hook, 1, 2, yarn over the hook and pull it through 2 loops. That's how you do a single crochet, and that's our first single crochet of round 1. You're going to insert your hook into that next stitch, and you're going to work a single crochet. Yarn over the hook, pull it through the stitch, yarn over the hook and pull it through 2 loops on your hook. Insert your hook into that next stitch and work a single crochet. And you can see how nice your stitches look. Now this is a little awkward because it's a big blanket and it's falling off my table, so please forgive me. I keep apologizing, but it is really hard to work this design leaning over a table. Insert your hook into the next stitch and work a single crochet. You may have to push down to get that hook through that yarn. Insert into the next stitch. And work a single crochet. Sometimes when you're working with this really big yarn, it helps using your fingers. Like if I stick my fingers in there, it helps opening it up for my hook to get in there easier. So insert your hook into that next stitch and work a single crochet. So go ahead and work 1 single crochet in each stitch across your top of your Afghan. You can see the stitches, and I will meet you at the corner after you work your last single crochet. I'm over at the corner of the first side of round 1, and this is what your work should look like. Your knit stitch is now turning into a single crochet across the top, and we're getting ready to turn the corner. So at the corner, after you work in your last stitch, we're going to chain 2. 1 and 2. We're going to turn the corner. Let me turn my Afghan here slightly. And if you look down the side of your Afghan, you should be able to see your stitches. Here's a stitch, here's a stitch. You can see it creates like a teardrop down your length. So you'll be working 1 single crochet in each stitch down your length. So let's insert into our first stitch, and you will be going under both strands of yarn. I'm just going to let where I fasten off hang back there. Don't let that confuse you. Work your first single crochet. The chain 2 acts as our turning corner and just gives a nice transition around that corner. So again, we're just working a single crochet in each stitch down your length, and make sure you go under both strands of yarn and work a single crochet. Insert your hook into that next stitch under both strands and work a single crochet. So go ahead and work 1 single crochet in each stitch down the length, and I'll meet you at the next corner. I am down to the bottom of my length, and this is what your work should look like. So now we're going to do the same thing at this corner that we did at the last corner. You worked your single crochet into your last stitch down the length. Now we're going to chain 2. 1 and 2. You're going to turn your work, and now we're going to work 1 single crochet in each stitch across the bottom of the Afghan. So insert your hook into that first stitch, making sure that you go under both strands of yarn and work a single crochet. Insert your hook into that next stitch, making sure you go under both strands and work a single crochet. So go ahead and work 1 single crochet in each stitch across the bottom of your Afghan, and I will meet you at the next corner. I am now over at the bottom of our Afghan, and I'm getting ready to come down the final side of our Afghan on the 4th side down the length. So we're going to do exactly the same thing as we did on all the other sides. We're going to work our last stitch in that last stitch, our last single crochet in that last stitch, and then we're going to chain 2. 1, 2. You're going to come around your work. You're going to insert your hook in that first row end stitch down the length under both strands, and you're going to work a single crochet. You're going to insert your hook into the next row end stitch, and you're going to work a single crochet. You're going to work 1 single crochet in each stitch down the length, making sure you go under both strands of yarn and work a single crochet. So go ahead and work 1 single crochet in each row end stitch down your length, and I will meet you at the next corner. I'm over at the end of round 1. Now some of my ends are showing. I'll weave them in when I'm all finished. But this is what your border should look like, and if you really look, you can see how thick this is. I mean, this is really thick. If you look at your finger, from your end of your finger up, it almost goes to that first joint in your finger. So that's a pretty thick blanket. Just a nice, soft, heavy blanket. I mean, it's really heavy. So if you live in Alaska and you have those really cold sub-zero nights, this is what I want to be under. But just one of those nice, big, giant, heavy, fluffy blankets. Okay, so let's finish round 1. We are at the end, so we're going to chain 2. 1, whoops, and 2. We're going to come over and we're going to join with a slip stitch in the top of that beginning single crochet. And again, sometimes it helps to stick your finger in there to help it easier to get your hook in there. So yarn over the hook and just pull it through that beginning single crochet and pull it through the loop on your hook. So now for round 2, basically we're just going to single crochet in each single crochet around. So let's get started by chaining 1. We're going to single crochet in the same beginning single crochet. Insert your hook and work a single crochet. Insert your hook into that next single crochet and work a single crochet. go ahead and work 1 single crochet in each stitch across until you get to the corner chain 2 space, and I'll meet you there. I'm over to the corner chain 2 space, and this is what your border's starting to look like. You have that 2 rounds of single crochet going on, creating just a nice subtle border around your Afghan. So now when we get to the corner chain 2 space, all you're going to do, and you're going to repeat this at every corner chain 2 space. You're going to insert your hook and work a single crochet. You're going to chain 2. You're going to insert your hook back into that same corner chain 2 space and work a single crochet. So you just worked 1 single crochet, chain 2, and 1 single crochet all in your corner chain 2 space. So to finish round 2, you're going to single crochet in each single crochet around your Afghan, and then you're going to single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in each corner chain 2 space. I will meet you at the end of round 2 and join our round. I'm over at the end of round 2, and I'm just going to join my round by inserting my hook into that beginning single crochet of the round and slip stitch through all loops on the hook, and then I'm going to fasten off my yarn. Just going to pull that down. I'm going to weave in my ends, and I'll be right back to show you the finished Afghan. So this is the finished Afghan. Again, this is the Blue Ice Big Stitch Afghan. It's pattern number 526, and this pattern is available on my website, creativegrandma.net. So thank you everybody for stopping by. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Happy crocheting!